We also want to talk about the statues issue that recognize the Civil War. So why is there a 2017 battle over a war that was fought in the 1800s? Statues are disappearing in the dark of night. Some are being toppled by citizens taking the situation into their own hands. These confrontations, though, are really just beginning. Richmond, Virginia, Florida are just among the places where we know by watching some of these groups online, they are planning new demonstrations over the course of the coming weeks. Today, the president tweeted this: "Sad to see the history and culture of our great country being ripped apart with the removal of our beautiful statues and monuments. You can't change history, but you can learn from it. Robert E. Lee, Stonewall Jackson, who's next? Washington, Jefferson, so foolish," he writes. Meanwhile, Cory Booker, senator from New Jersey, pushing to have all the Confederate statues removed from the Capitol. There are several that are there. Nancy Pelosi is on board on that, as are others. Here now, Tony Perkins, president of the Family Research Council, and Juan Williams, co-host of The Five. Gentlemen, welcome. Always good to see you. Juan, let me start with you. Your reaction to the president's statement there today?
Well, I just think it's one side. I guess he understands somehow that it excites some part of his political base, people who see him as non-PC. But in reality, you know, to me, this is not about some Orwellian effort to revise history. This is about an effort to take down monuments. Monuments are for the living, and at the moment, they have become symbols that excite hatred and division in our society. And so I think if, in terms of moral leadership and clarity, you would say, you know, this is too much. This is exciting the neo-Nazis, the white supremacists. They're using it as recruiting tools, as evidence that they are under attack and to foment resentment in their ranks. I think that there is a moment here when you can say, this is part of our history. Maybe it belongs, as we saw in South Carolina. Nikki Haley, now the UN ambassador, says, let's move the flag into a museum. We certainly teach the history of the Civil War in our schools. These monuments, for the most part, were erected not in the immediate aftermath of the Civil War, but really in the early part of the 20th century when the KKK was on the move.
Let's look at some numbers here. I want to put up some polls of how people feel about this, and then we want to get Tony Perkins to weigh in. 62% say that they would like them to remain, these monuments, as a historic symbol. 27% say they should be removed. 11% are unsure. And with regard to how the president handled it all, 52% say President Trump's response was not strong enough on this, and 27% say it was. 21% say that they are unsure. Tony Perkins, welcome again. Your thoughts and your reaction to all of this?
Well, Martha, I respect Juan's feelings and the others that, but I think for a moment, let's pause. Let's look at what's happening in Barcelona, and it's not unrelated to this. I think it's a very dangerous time, very dangerous world, and as a former law enforcement officer and one anti-terrorism, this is a dangerous time for us if we're a divided nation, and clearly what we have seen in the last 5 days is that we're a divided nation. Yeah. And I think what we have to do, we have to address this issue from a standpoint of, hey, we got to quit shouting over each other and start talking to each other. And I think we need to take a pause. Feelings are high on both sides of this. And I don't think we're going to accomplish anything by just raising the volume. I've called on the president to ask for the nation to come for a day of prayer and reconciliation, that we hit the pause button, let the emotions go down, think through this, look to God, who is the one who gives value to each and every human life, regardless of their color, regardless of where they came from, because this is a dangerous time for America, and we cannot succeed if we're a divided nation.
Well put. I think a day of prayer is something that most people could get. Juan, you think that's a good idea?
I love it. You know, that's something Tony and I could shake hands on right now. The idea of people talking and healing is at the forefront of my mind, because I just don't like all the hostility and division. We're Americans, and Tony and I are both Christians, but I mean, we're Americans, and I think the idea of somehow finding a way to communicate rather than playing culture wars would be ideal.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody cares what these neo-Nazis feel about the statues. I think the rest of us need to decide the best route forward. Tony Perkins, thank you so much. Juan Williams, good to see you.